Translator, Neen Tales. Editor, Fish Creek. When Chinmu dashed like mad, his footsteps drove up a gale. Granny Sea and Blind had sat upon the very lip of that gale to make their way. The lip of a gale was much like the crest of a wave. A wave is born of water's movement, and the wind wave Chinmu had raised was the gale's very crest. The young man upon Chinmu's back immediately slipped down, then hurriedly led the three toward his own home, urging in haste, "Quickly, quickly!" Chinmu set aside in his mind the matter of the gale's crest, and strode into the courtyard of that manor to take a look. This village was far larger than disabled elderly village, sheltering more than 100 households. The dwellings here were likewise plain and rough. In the courtyard stood a towering tree whose crown spread to cover half the house. The woman in labor was within the room beneath that canopy. A village woman poked her head out of the room and cried, "Her waters have broken. Quickly bring hot water." Ah, wonderful. The midwife from disabled elderly village is here. Now the mother and child will surely both be safe. Granny Sea swept her gaze about, and at once grasped what was happening. "Muir, open your eyes and look around for any strangeness. If there is anything amiss, you may settle it yourself. I will go in to deliver the child. Blind, be careful as well. Do not be plotted against." Heaven's eyes, awaken! Chinmu opened his heaven's eyes and cast his sight across the surroundings. Suddenly his gaze fixed upon the dense canopy, and his blood turned icy as he nearly cried out. Upon the tree there was a branch thick beyond reason. Yet, when he looked closely, it was no branch at all, but a colossal serpent, thick as a barrel. The great serpent lay hidden within the crown. Half its body sunk into the trunk itself. From time to time, huge knots bulged from the bark. Those were the parts of the serpent's body exposed to the open air. Judging only from that girth, Chinmu knew this was an ancient snake he had never before seen. The other half of its body was likely buried with the roots deep in the soil. This serpent was even larger than the green dragon snake Old Ma and the others had captured. The entire tree, canopy included, was exhaling dense black vapors, curling and coiling as they shrouded the house. At that moment, the enormous snake flicked out its scarlet tongue, lowering its head toward the room where the woman lay. Chinmu did not know what it meant to do. Fearing he had mistaken a vision, Chinmu closed his heaven's eyes and looked with his naked sight. The tree was still a tree, not a giant snake. Yet when he awakened his heaven's eyes once more, the vast serpent was still coiled in the crown, lying in wait to devour the soul of the child about to be born. It was plain that this great snake had swallowed the souls of the infants this woman had borne over the past years. Fury flared within his heart, and he asked in a solemn voice, "Grandpa Blind?" Blind, at his side, answered with languid ease, "Granny told us to leave it to you, so do what must be done. This is your first hunt. Hurry, the child is about to come out." Chinmu steadied himself and walked beneath the tree, breathing in and out with care. His vital chi, once still, began to move, and with the anger in his chest, it became boundless, circulating faster and faster. As the vital chi within him surged, his fury burned all the more fiercely. Shink! All at once, the pig-slaughtering knife resonated with the vital chi in his body, humming as it flew from his back to hover above his head. He raised his hands and seized the knife. His rampaging vital chi poured wildly into the pig-slaughtering knife as he swung, swinging with all his might, unleashing all his vital chi and blazing wrath in that unbridled cleave. Slash! The pig-slaughtering knife whistled in his grasp, tearing the air, and delivered a ruinous cut into the trunk of the huge tree. Clank! A thunderous sound rang out as Chinmu's blade bit into the trunk, embedding halfway into the serpent's body hidden within. That snake's skin and flesh had been refined to terrifying toughness, so much so that even the pig-slaughtering knife, a weapon forged by Mute that surpassed ordinary spirit weapons, could not split the great serpent cleanly in two. He placed one palm upon the back of the blade and executed Cripple's leg skills. Cripple had once said, "Legs are the wind, the earth, the root of all strength." He planted his legs into the ground, strength surged forth, and the earth around his feet sank. With all his momentum, he pressed his hand upon the back of the knife while his other hand clamped tightly around the hilt, and he forced the blade onward. A rasping scrape sounded. The great snake was severed in two along with the tree. Chin-Mu braced his stance and held the pig's slaughtering knife before him. Blood continued to drip from the blade. The muscles across his back were drawn taut, twitching beyond his control. Behind him, the towering tree leaned and toppled. Crash! The huge tree fell within the courtyard, raising clouds of dust. In the same instant, the fallen tree came alive. The great serpent, split into two, was still living. The upper half of its body thrashed violently, smashing apart the trunk that had hidden it, blasting bark in every direction. Some shards of bark even lodged into the wall. Those splintering barks and chunks of wood were more dreadful than spears, shooting through the air with tremendous force. Midnight battle across stormy cities. The pig slaughtering knife in Chin-Mu's hand flashed as he swung. His earlier move had been heavy beyond measure, gathering all his strength into the blade, yet now his knife arts turned unnaturally swift. There was but one secret to Butcher's knife skill: fast, faster, fastest. Clank, 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 clank. Violent blows rained down as countless barks and timbers crashed against Chin-Mu's pig-slaughtering knife, numbing his arms from the constant blocking. The serpent's prowess surpassed his, yet its attention was fixed upon the woman in labor, for it wished to snatch the child's soul the instant the infant emerged. When babies are born, their umbilical cords are joined to their mother's placentas. Thus their pneumas are pre-celestial, and only upon birth do their pneumas become post-celestial. While still in the womb, their pneumas are incomplete, so the huge snake chose to seize the soul at the very moment the baby was born. Who knew how it had slipped into the village and concealed itself from all eyes while cultivating here? It had hidden within this tree for several years without being discovered, devouring the souls of several infants to raise its own cultivation. It had believed all would proceed smoothly, as in the previous times, and had not noticed Chin-Mu, allowing him to sever it in half. Yet, even cut in two, it would not die so easily. The great snake erupted in rage, knowing its body had been severed, and it would be difficult to remain alive for long. It reacted at once, jaws yawning wide as it lunged to bite Chin-Mu. Violent gusts blasted into Chin-Mu's face, making his features twitch violently and his eyes unable to open. Without a second thought, the blade in Chin-Mu's hand slashed forward like a raging storm. Yet an unimaginable crushing strength struck him and knocked him back with a grunt. With a loud crash, a large human-shaped hole was smashed into the courtyard wall. Before Chin-Mu could rise, he saw the courtyard's two gates blown away like paper cards. The huge snake crashed through the gate and slithered straight at him, a bloodthirsty aura pouring off it. Its savage maw and long fangs made Chin-Mu's scalp prickle. He dared not meet it head-on and stole a pleading glance toward Blind. In the distance behind the snake, Blind merely stood there calmly, paying no heed to what was happening. Chin-Mu's heart stirred. Could it be Grandpa? Blind believes I can handle this snake? If he believes I can handle it, then I will be able to do it. Heaven's eyes, awaken. His vital chi surged in vigorous circulation and flowed into his eyes, forming layer upon layer of magnificent vital chi formations, weaving into complex markings within his pupils. The moment he awakened his heaven's eyes, he felt the world before him had been remade. The dim village, the scattered houses, the snake pouncing at him, all became many times clearer. Every motion the snake made, he could seize with ease. He shifted his footwork and evaded the serpent's pounce by the breadth of an inch, then drew his pig-slaughtering knife across the eye of the huge snake as it flew past him. He sprang upward, once again dodging the serpent's sweeping strike by the breadth of an inch. Every movement of the snake was incomparably clear within his sight. From the contraction of muscles beneath its scales and the angle at which it exerted force, he could know its next motion with certainty and evade accordingly. All of this unfolded as though it were natural for Chin-Mu. There was no need for him to predict its movement. Heaven's eyes, the first heaven of 9 heavens eye awakening skill, could not only see through false appearances, but also raise his senses by leaps and bounds. With its left eye split open by Chin-Mu's blade, the serpent shrieked in pain and instantly pounced toward Chin-Mu, who had just landed on the ground. Then everything before the snake's other eye turned dark as well, for that eye too was sliced apart by Chin-Mu. The huge snake suddenly fell quiet and ceased moving. Chin-Mu also stood motionless, making not a sound. Man and snake were only a few yards apart. Along the village's roadside, several villagers had come out to look, only to be stunned at the sight of an 11 to 12-year-old boy battling a colossal serpent. Night had already fallen upon this small village, and the light of old lamps shone dimly through the windows, barely illuminating the lanes. Almost everyone held their breath, afraid to make even the slightest sound. Everyone, save for the little girl who suddenly cried out in fright. The huge snake moved at once and slithered toward the little girl. Its massive mouth gaped wide as it lunged at the family of 3 who stood frozen in terror. Translator, Ninetails. Editor, Fish Creek. The instant the gargantuan serpent stirred, Chin-Moo sprang forward as well. With his pig-slaughtering knife whipping like a furious tempest, he hacked madly at the frail seam between the snake's head and its body. Pig-slaughtering knife skill? Sun on East Sea, 1,000-layer waves. Butcher's move had to carry the majesty of a vast sun surging up from the sea, with 1,000 layers of waves piling upon waves. With peerless saber force, it would cleave down and shatter every might that dared stand before it. In Chin-Moo's mind, there was only one thought. Chop, 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 chop! Chop! I must behead it! Chi! Serpent blood sprayed in all directions. The triangular head, broad as a tabletop, was severed from its body, yet it still flew onward toward the family of 3, unaware it had already died. Seeing that enormous snake head about to reach the family of 3, Chin-Moo vaulted above it and drove a fierce kick downward, snapping the snake's jaws shut. The youth dropped straight down together with the snake's head, crashing to the ground right before the family of 3 who had been scared out of their wits. All 3 stared dully at the youth before them. Chin-Moo bent at the waist and flashed the little girl a grin, showing his white teeth. Everything's fine now, little girl. Suddenly, the wail of a baby rang out, and a woman rushed from the house that the huge snake had half destroyed, beaming as she cried, "Congratulations! Both the mother and child are safe." Chin-Moo at once returned the pig-slaughtering knife to its cowskin sheath and dashed back into the courtyard. The young man had already stormed excitedly into the house, while Granny C came out after washing her hands, turning to glance once more at the loving family behind her. "Are you satisfied, Muir?" Granny C smiled. Chin-Moo looked upon the scene of that loving family of 3 and gently nodded. His hand unconsciously lifted, fingers closing around the jade pendant at his chest. Granny C looked at his hand and let out a sigh within her heart. Blind stepped forward and yawned. "The matter here is settled, so it's time for us to sleep. Granny, they don't have much room here, so how about we squeeze?" Granny turned her head, her gaze terrifying. Blind shuddered uncontrollably, jabbed his bamboo cane into the ground, and turned away. Nowadays, even the blind have to suffer fierce stares. People today have truly degenerated. I shall sleep on the street. Granny, how come no one in the village had noticed this huge snake all this time? Chin-Moo asked in puzzlement, watching as the villagers dragged the snake's tail out from the hollow of the tree trunk. He had lived in disabled elderly village since young, and all the villagers there were disabled. Even Granny C was hunchbacked, yet to him, the elders in the village were capable of anything. The villagers here were mostly ordinary humans. Even though there were practitioners, their cultivation and strength weren't very high, thus doubts rose in him. In Great Ruins, there's only one disabled elderly village. Granny C's gaze was tranquil. Most of the people here are ordinary humans who were too late to escape the Great Ruins catastrophe. There are also some people who were unable to continue living in the outside world and forced to escape here to hide from the pressure of exorbitant taxations of the landlords, seeking to survive here. The outside world? Chin-Moo's eyes glittered. The outside world is much more dangerous than Great Ruins. Granny C gave a cold humph. Otherwise, Granny and the rest wouldn't be forced to hide here in the Great Ruins? Don't always think about going to the outside world. Chin-Moo scratched his head, having no idea why Granny Sai, who was always affable, had suddenly blown her temper. Granny Sai lowered her voice and whispered, "There's something strange going on with this snake. Strange beasts are normally unable to enter villages, yet this huge snake could hide in the manor, for several years even. I'm afraid this huge snake could only be purposely let in by someone. This kind of breeding method seems to be a method of the devil cult. Heh. Something interesting might just happen tonight." The snake was purposely let into the village to harm the villagers? Chinmu's heart turned icy. How vile could such a person be? The snake had clearly devoured the souls of a few newborn babies. What benefit was there to feeding infants to a snake? Muir, something weird might happen to you tonight, but don't you move or make a sound even when you see it. In the morning, the outcome would be revealed. Granny C chuckled, showing the scattered bits of teeth left in her mouth. He used the snake to suck the infant's pneuma and souls before sucking the essence from the snake to reverse his pre-celestial pneuma. He should have been cultivating for many years and should have an extraordinary ability. This method of cultivation would definitely cause him to be chased down by people against devils outside. Thus, he could only stir up havoc here in Great Ruins. You can't deal with the person coming tonight, Muir. Just look. Chinmu nodded, uneasiness welling up inside him. This family was overjoyed for quite a long time, laughing and crying, before they remembered to arrange a place for Granny C and Chinmu to settle down. The couple gave up their central and inner room for Granny C and Chinmu to rest. Chinmu felt it inappropriate, but Granny C didn't refuse, having Chinmu sleep in the central room while she slept in the inner room. Not long after, both of them fell asleep. Chinmu had originally tried to keep himself awake, but as time passed, his eyelids drooped and gradually closed. In the dead of night, when all was quiet and still, Chinmu suddenly shivered violently and snapped his eyes open, only to discover he couldn't move. The door to the central room creaked open, and dim light seeped in through the crack. A long shadow then appeared on the ground. Chinmu opened his mouth, yet he wasn't able to make any sound to warn Granny C. The shadow on the ground flickered and began to move, crawling up the wall. The shadow on the wall twisted and revealed sharp teeth and claws, making it seem all the more menacing. Cold sweat broke out across Chinmu's forehead as the shadow climbed to the ceiling, then hung straight down to stare at him. Chinmu stared back with eyes wide. It was a real shadow hanging down at him, flat, yet astonishingly supple, as though it were a practitioner skilled in bone-bending contortion. However, it was clearly only a shadow. How could a shadow move freely? And where could the owner of that shadow be? Whoosh! A gust of wind blew in through the door crack and carried with it a small triangular white banner, which was caught in the shadow's hands as it flicked it toward Chinmu. At that moment, the door of the room where Granny C slept suddenly creaked open, and a silver bead flew out. It resembled the silver pellets Chinmu had seen in Granny C's room. The bead halted at the heart of Chinmu's brow and spun in place without giving off the slightest sound. Hair-thin swords, nearly impossible to see, unceasingly shot out from the silver bead. The black shadow on the ceiling waved the white banner as it drifted around the room. The white banner was swift as lightning, repeatedly striking at Chinmu lying on the bed. At the same time, the bead moved as well, meeting it in silent clashes and blocking every attack. No matter how fiercely those two strange objects collided, not a sound was produced, and not a single item was destroyed throughout that eerily quiet showdown. After some time, the shadow trembled and spat blood from its mouth. The white banner fluttered away, while the black shadow flowed out of the house like water and vanished. The silver bead stopped spinning and returned into the other room without leaving a trace. Only then could Chinmu feel that he could move again, and he gulped in air. He didn't understand what had just happened, but the bloodstains on the ground proved that everything he had witnessed had truly taken place. Outside the house, no sound could be heard except the beating of the gong. It was the night watchman announcing the period of the night to prevent the villagers from waking early and being swallowed by the darkness outside the village. The night watchman struck the gong 3 times, then put it away and headed home. When he reached the front of his house, he saw a blind man passing by, tapping along with a bamboo cane. "Old brother, find a place to take a rest." The night watchman hurriedly stopped, blind, and smiled. "It's already so late. Be careful not to wander out of the village and get eaten by the monsters." Blind smiled and tapped his bamboo cane upon the night watchman's shadow. "Thanks for the warning." After offering his thanks, Blind tapped his way onward with the bamboo cane and slowly walked away. Pop, pop! 2 bloody holes burst open in the night watchman's chest as his body swayed and collapsed to the ground. What a fast spear to be able to break through my spell. Keke, I know who you are. You may be blind now, but you are even stronger than before. The night watchman took his last breath and died. From above, a triangular white banner floated down and covered his face.